Now, all eyes are on Brazil for the World Cup soccer, but there's another sport that's captivated the world for decades, and I'm talking about wrestling. World Wrestling Entertainment, or WWE, is watched in 145 countries, would you believe, to around 13 million viewers. It's broadcast here in Australia on Fox 8. It was the Australian broadcast of the sport that captivated Tenille Dashwood. The Melbourne woman watched wrestling as a teenager, dreamed of joining this competition as a wrestler, and is in the studio with me. Tenille, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Where did you grow up in Melbourne?
Actually in Boronia, right by the Dandenongs.
There you go. And so it was watching this particular program that inspired you.
Yeah, I started watching wrestling when I was about 8 years old with my brother Jake, and I kind of never snapped out of it and fell in love and went after my dream.
So what's the road from Boronia to the world wrestling stages?
It was a long road. It took me a long time. I got involved with the independent wrestling scene in Australia and travelled and wrestled here throughout my teenage years and through my schooling. And then when I was 19, I kind of took it upon myself to get some professional training in Canada. So I moved there kind of out of the blue, just decided to get up and go after my dream and kind of never looked back after that.
So the sport, it's not big enough to support someone here in Australia?
There's definitely wrestling all around Australia. I have a lot of friends here that are great wrestlers. It's just hard to get kind of noticed unless you take it that step further internationally, where a lot of it is more recognised.
Tell us about your training when you went to Canada.
Yeah, I trained with Lance Storm, who's a WWE superstar, and I basically lived in Calgary. I trained every day for a few hours and
dreamt of Australian summers while you were
exactly. Calgary winters were horrible, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, I spent about the next 5 or so years living between Canada and the States and wrestling and networking until I felt that I was ready to approach WWE and get to a tryout.
So you sort of got to train much the same as a musician trains or anyone, and then what have you got to come up with to WWE to get them to take you on board, other than your skills wrestling?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so many different people that come into the wrestling world these days. They're not necessarily wrestlers beforehand like I was. So for myself, you have to have not just the wrestling skills, but you have to be able to entertain people and get in front of a camera, and you have to mix all those skills together. So there's models, there's athletes, there's people from all over the world that come to be part of the WWE. So
as much as you needed to be able to wrestle, you also had to be able to communicate like you are today.
Yeah, it's all about how you look, how you present yourself. If you can make people laugh or get people involved and have fun and be entertaining. A lot of it, more so than the wrestling skills, that's something you can kind of learn over time, but you have to have something that can catch people's attention too.
Why? And so it's the large amount of theatre.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a soap opera, basically, with a bunch of wrestling and big guys with muscles.
How competitive is it to get into WWE?
It's not easy, that's for sure. It took me years to, especially coming from Australia, to work out how to even kind of start working my way into that scene in America, which is why I moved over to that side of the world to be closer and try work it all out. and it took years, but when I was just turned 22, I finally applied for a tryout there, and at that tryout there was thousands of people applied. They chose 50 people to come down to Tampa for a week tryout, and at the end they gave out one contract, and I was the lucky winner.
That's so there's been a lot of... How many years was that between when you left Australia to start training in Calgary to when you actually got into that 50?
Well, I started wrestling in Australia when I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
I moved over to Canada when I was 19, and then I basically started with the WWE 2 years ago now at their developmental school. So I'm 25 now.
So how did you make a living or make ends meet in that interim time?
I had a working visa when I was in Canada, and I basically worked any and every job I could and just saved every penny. And I've done that my whole life since I was young. Every job I worked, I knew that I was saving because I wanted to move overseas one day and pursue this dream. So it was always been about this. Well,
good on you. It's great if someone is, because so many people, young people, don't have any clues really what they want to do, but you always knew.
Right. Well, I feel like my teachers and everyone was always asking me what I wanted to do, and all I could think of was I want to wrestle.
Oh, that'd go down well.
Exactly, but back then, but you know what? It worked out all right for me, so I stuck with it.
Okay, so you travel the world now?
Yeah, we travel. Mostly we do live events and TVs in the United States, and I've been to, I think it's 30 different cities this year already. And then we actually just got back from a Europe tour a few weeks ago, so that was my first international tour with the company.
The character of Emma, how did you come up with that? Emma doesn't sound dangerous.
Well, you just have to use your imagination. I put Emma into every word I can basically these days. But the character was basically first I picked my music, my entrance music, and then I kind of adapted the dance and my whole entrance with that. And now I have bubble machines. They're playing when I come out, and I pop some bubbles and dance. And it kind of just grew as everything came together. And obviously at the developmental school NXT, we have coaches there that teach us and help us put it all together and, you know, kind of become a character.
Do you all get on? Because you'd be spending a lot of time together, or
Yeah.
are there great big wrestle-offs?
It's just like
Other than on stage.
a very big family. We are with each other, you know, sometimes 6-7 days a week, and it's basically you're home away from home. We travel together, we have hotels together. You know, it's just like a family.
What's Hell in a Cell?
That's a pay-per-view. Oh, it's a giant, almost like it's a cell basically that the wrestlers are trapped inside for a match.
Any injuries? How common are injuries for wrestlers?
It's just like any profession, there's obviously a danger to it. That's why we don't recommend anyone tries it at home. It takes us years to learn what we do in the ring. And I have dislocated my shoulder a number of times before I started with the company. And I obviously had to get that fixed. I had surgery, and it's been great so far. So I don't have a problem with it anymore.
But don't worry about your teachers before. We were talking about the reaction to teachers. How did your mum and dad feel when you said, at what were you, early teens, oh, I want to be a wrestler?
Yeah, well, my mum's actually here. I brought her with me because I'm a Melbourne girl, so she's actually been my biggest supporter the whole time. She used to take me to wrestling training during the week. She took me to all my shows. She helped me meet the wrestling superstars when I was young, so it's kind of cool being in being that in a different position now and looking back, and I was one of those fans, and that's me growing up.
Is the tour that's coming up August 7, Rod Laver Arena, is that the first time WWE has toured Australia?
No, not the first time, but they're not here very often. So I think it's once a year at the moment. And actually, the first show I went to was 2002. So they've come here every year.
How much improvising is there in what you do once the show is started?
It's like I said, it's like a soap opera. So a lot of it is there's like storyline, but a lot of it is trained, and you are used to working with the people in the ring as well. So you know, it's some of it. It depends on the match or how much time you have, and sometimes you know a bunch, and sometimes you just go in there and you put your skills together and you come up with a match.
Does anyone ever get too far off script and get themselves into trouble?
Well, no, I don't think so. Everyone, we're all doing this for the same cause and to put out a good story and entertain the crowd. So,
well, this is a really good Melbourne story, Tenille. It's great to meet you, and I hope August 7 at Rod Laver Arena. Tickets through Ticket Tech for anyone who wants to have a great night out. WWE live at Rod Laver Arena. Thank you for coming in today, and congratulations.
Thank you, and I'm so excited to wrestle in front of Australia.
Talking Melbourne.